Alright, so welcome guys to part 2 of our chapter 1, which is the introduction to electronic communication. But before we proceed, let's have first a short review on our topic last week. Right, so for last week, we talked about, of course, the first part of our chapter 1, which focuses on these three topics here about the significance of human communication, the communication systems, and the types of electronic communication. All right. So, yeah, of course, we talk about what is communication. That when we say communication, it is the, please do not forget, the process of exchanging information. The main goal while you communicate to one another from one human to the other human is in order to have an exchange of information. And during the early times, there are a lot of barriers for human communication, just like the distance and language. But our modern technology nowadays allows us to overcome these main barrier. And also, we have different methods of communication before. All right, so these are during the early age we have the traditional, and then later part we now have the electronic innovations, right? So all of these constitute to what we call the methods of communication that we have nowadays. And also we talk about the communication system. All right, so when talking about communication system, there are three basic components in a communication system. First, hindi ito mawawala. Okay, these three basic components. So first, we have the transmitter. And of course, kailangan merong channel saan mo padadaanan yung i-transmit, and then the receiver. We also talked about noise, that noise is unevitable, but we do not want noise because noise degrades, right? Pinapababa niya yung quality ng ating signal by interfering into the information that we are trying to transmit. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So we have our transmitter. This is our um, communication channel, where usually this could be free space, this could be wired, this could be optical, depende. All right, and if you notice, on the channel, it is where our signal is susceptible to noise. So we also talk about transmitter, receivers, right? And then we have the word attenuation. When we say attenuation, we also don't want our signal to experience this, but this is inevitable. And attenuation is the degradation. Okay, degradation of our signal. And it has something to do with the distance between our devices. Okay, because attenuation is proportional to the square of the distance between the transmitter and the receiver. Alright, so ibig sabihin, mas malayo sila sa bawat isa, mas nag-attenuate yung signal. Or distance is the number one reason that our signal attenuates. That is the nature of our signal. Of course, noise. And also we talk about how do we classify our electronic communication. So your electronic communication could be classified whether it is one-way ba siya, one-way ba siya or two-way. Okay? Or pwede mo din siya classify according to whether it is analog or digital. So one-way or simplex, we talked about that. So pag sinabi natin simplex, just remember this, okay? Simplex, simple lang siya. There is only one way of communication. For example, sa ating TV broadcasting, so our source is only from the TV station papunta sa'yo, sa mga bahay nyo. Ganun lang. Okay, you cannot really send information to the TV station. So there is only one flow of information. That is simplex. Pagka sinabi nating duplex, dalawa kasi yun. It could either be full duplex or half duplex. But sometimes, pag sinabing duplex lang, it refers to full duplex na. Okay? Just like we say two, 'di ba? It means positive two kasi two could either be positive two or negative two. Tama po ba? Pero pagka sometimes sinabi na two lang, as if somehow we already know na ibig sabihin nun is positive 2. Okay, so just like here. So although we know that duplex could either be full duplex or half duplex, pagka sometimes sinabing duplex lang, you already know at the back of your mind that that could mean full duplex na. Okay, so you can say na it could either be full duplex or half duplex. Pag hindi in-identify kung anong klase ng duplex, automatic siya sometimes na full duplex yung ibig sabihin. Okay, so pagka full, of course, kasi full siya, there is two-way communication. The one station could either receive or send signal. Okay, just like your cell phone, 'di ba? That is full duplex. You can either talk and yung kausap mo could receive the signal and yung kausap mo pwede siya magsalita and then you could also receive the signal. So at the same time, yung cellphone mo could transmit and receive signal. Kapag ka half duplex naman, of course, half lang siya, 'di ba? So, um, yeah, is this a two-way? Okay, please do not be confused ha, kasi baka iniisip nyo na kapag ka half lang siya, so one way. Pagka full two-way, it's not like that. Okay? Pagka, although half siya, it could still be two-way pa rin siya. Okay? Kasi pwede pa rin both party magsalita. Kaya nga lang, hindi sila sabay. Okay? Sa half duplex, kasi half lang siya, although two-way siya, pero hindi pwedeng sabay. So, magsasalitan sila. Okay? This is not the communication would not happen concurrently. Hindi sila pwedeng sabay magsalita. Okay? Um, what do you call that? Palitan sila. Okay. For example, yung mga police or military, yung radio transmission, yung radio nila, 'di ba? If you notice, hindi sila sabay nagsasalita. Tama po ba? O, kasi palit-palitan lang sila. They take their turns. So, that is half duplex. So, again, yung signal natin, pwede din siyang identify as either analog ba yan or digital. So, sa analog, of course, you already know the difference between analog and digital. In fact, I gave you an assignment on this one. And kapag ka sinabi mong analog, example is yung, please just don't forget na yung voice natin is analog. Okay? So, example is you have the voice, the sine wave in the video, or yung video signal natin, eto. These are analog. If you notice, ano ba yung characteristic ng analog? They are somehow continuous siya. Okay, na-notice nyo? There are different levels of amplitude, different frequency. Okay, continuous. Sometimes signals could also be digital. Okay, kapag ka digital, digital signals change in steps or in discrete increments. Alright? So, kumbaga meron siya, unlike sa analog na hindi siya fixed kung ilan ba yung tinataas niya. Okay. Dito sa digital, fixed siya. For example, ito, kung tataas yung signal natin dito, you know that it's 5 volts pataas. Tataas siya ng 5 volts. Bababa ng 5 volts. From 0, tataas ng 5 volts. From 5, bababa ng 5 volts. Parang ganun. Discrete yung kanyang behavior. Okay. Unlike sa analog, continuous. Tumaas siya ng, let's say for example, nalagdagan ng 1 volts, ng 2 volts, ng 1 volts, depende. Okay. Mas more predictable itong ating digital. Okay. So, ayan. Okay, so we are now ready to proceed to our part 2. I hope you are excited. Alright. So on part 2, we will be talking about the continuation, of course, of part 1, wherein we have these topics. So on part 2, we're going to talk about modulation and multiplexing, and we have the electromagnetic spectrum and our bandwidth. So let's begin. So let us start by defining what is modulation and multiplexing. So itong dalawa, modulation and multiplexing, these are electronic techniques, okay? Ito yung mga techniques na ginagamit natin in transmitting information efficiently. There is the word efficiently. Because we could just transmit information without modulating or multiplexing it. But by using these two, we can transmit it efficiently. Please don't forget the word efficiently. Of course, from one place to another. So, modulation, ano ba yung modulation? It's from the word modulate. Tama po ba? Pagka sinabi mo modulate, If you try to search it on your dictionary, pag sinabi mong modulate, there is the word change. Alright? It's associated with the word change. Or actually, ang meaning niya sa dictionary, it means to change or adjust so that it exists in a balance or proper amount. So you are changing. Okay? So pagka sinabi mong modulation, you are changing, I'm sorry, you are changing the information. Bakit mo siya change? Okay? What's the goal of changing? In order for it to be compatible with the medium. Right? Because take note sa ating communication system, there are three basic components, di ba? Meron tayong transmitter, channel, and receiver. Alright? So, para yung ating information or signals compatible with our chosen medium, which could either be, ano nga ulit yun? Which could either be optical, which could either be wired, which could either be wireless, right? Para compatible siya, kailangan natin siyang i-change. Alright? So, we'll know later kung bakit siya i-change. Okay? Basta as of the moment, you know na kailangan siyang i-change para compatible siya sa medium. Okay? Ang tawag mo doon, the process of changing is called modulation. Actually, if you try to Google the word modulation, you will get this. Okay? Pag sinabi mong modulation, in electronics, modulation is the process of varying one or more properties of periodic waveform. Binabago mo yung property ng ating waveform, which is called the carrier signal with the modulating signal that typically contains the information to be transmitted. Okay? So, I know you're familiar. Example nito is, alam ko narinig niyo yung AM at saka FM. Although we are going to talk about deeper on that on the next time, or yeah, um AM stands for amplitude modulation, 'di ba? FM is for frequency modulation. Okay, so again, anong sabi sa modulation? Modulation is the process of varying. Binabago mo yung isang signal. Okay? Binabago mo yung isang signal, tawag mo sa signal na binabago mo, yung carrier signal mo, binabago mo siya with the modulating signal. So, ibig sabihin, sa AM, A is for amplitude, sa AM modulation, amplitude modulation, sorry, yung binabago mo doon ay yung amplitude ng signal natin. We are varying the amplitude of our signal. So, ibig sabihin din pala sa frequency modulation, we are modulating or binabago natin yung frequency ng ating signal. Okay? So, modulation, meron kang binabago. Binabago siya. Bakit? In order for it to be compatible with the medium for compatibility purposes. Okay? So, that is your modulation. Babaguhin yung signal para maging compatible sa medium. So, I have here a video that I'd like to show you.
Directly.
So, why don't we send
Before
the
we
data
get
signal
into
directly?
technical details,
Right.
let's talk about
So, before we get down into technical details, let's talk about. Alright, so in order to give more emphasis on modulation, I have here video which I just searched on YouTube. So why don't we send data signal directly? Bakit hindi diretso? Ba't kailangan pang i-modulate? So let's watch this.
Before we get into technical details, let's talk about an experience which probably everyone has had before. If we try to throw a piece of paper far away from us, the piece of paper would not go too far even if we threw it very hard. However, it would not be difficult to get the piece of paper over a farther distance if we wrap a rock with it and throw them together. Data signal wave is like this piece of paper, and the rock is like a carrier wave. Modulation is like...
Alright, so did you get that? So, kinumpare niya itong ating, oopsie, ayan. So, yung paper, alright, hindi siya abot sa malayo kapag wala siya, pure paper lang siya. Pero pag nilagyan mo ng bato, if you put rock with it, sabay mo silang tinapon, mas malayo yung mararating niya. So, basically, that is the That is the goal of modulation. It's not that hindi pwede na directly na lang yung voice mo yung ilagay mo sa medium. Pwede naman, okay? But more efficient siya, especially pag napakalayong mga places niya na yung papupuntahan mo ng signal, mas efficient siya na i-modulate mo. Kasi, ayun, kapag ka nilagyan mo ng bato, yung papel, or yung kapag ka yung voice mo, right, sinupress mo, in-impress, in-impress mo doon sa carrier wave, ayan, mas malayo yung mararating niya. Parang ganun. Now, notice, this is your, say for example, this is your data signal, and this is your carrier. Okay? Kumbaga, ipapasabay mo siya sa carrier, yung data mo, yung information mo, yung base signal mo, ipapasabay mo sa carrier para mas better yung transmission, mas malayo yung mararating. But if you notice, ano ba yung property ng carrier natin based sa ating figure? Usually, yung carrier wave natin is kung sa bato, between the rock and the paper, ano ba yung difference sila? Mas mabigat to, di ba? Ito din sa mga siguro mas mabigat in terms of frequency. Okay? Mas, mas, mas dense yung frequency niya. Okay? Mas higher yung frequency niya kumpara dito sa ating original signal. So if our original or baseband information is lower in frequency, kaya nga siya tinawag na baseband, mababa yung frequency niya, pagka sinabay doon natin siya sa carrier, pinasakay natin sa carrier, mas malayo yung mararating. Okay? Malalaman natin on later, in the next topic siguro natin, kung paano talaga siya, yung paano siya pinapasakay sa career. Okay? So, we'll know later. Basta as of the moment, alam natin na yung modulation gumagamit ng higher frequency signals, which is called the carrier, para ipasakay itong ating data para more or less mas efficient yung transmission, mas malayo yung transmission. Okay? So, let's continue.
Modulation is like wrapping the rock with a piece of paper so that we can throw them together in a way we want.
Ayun, sabay sila.
Technically, there's many reasons why we need modulation, but here we only talk about 4 purposes of modulation. 1. Data signal wave such as conversation or music is lower frequency signal
Ayan.
wave.
Just excuse
Lower
the word frequency. Okay.
wave is
He means
more
frequency.
susceptible to interference than higher frequency wave.
Mas na-interfere yung
Modulation
lower
makes the
frequency.
data signal wave a higher
Ayan.
frequency wave. 2.
Yep.
Higher frequency wave would have more bandwidth, thus carry more data. 3. Lower frequency signals would require a much larger size antenna at the receiving end.
Ayan. So, yung isa pang reason, kapag yung signal mo is low frequency, pagdating sa receiving end, kailangan ng mataas na antenna. Okay? So, and we don't want that because that would mean higher cost. And of course, we want to achieve a cost-efficient communication system naman. Okay? Ayun. So, through modulation, our antenna size can be reduced. Big sabihin, also reducing the
4.
cost.
Security is another reason in many cases. With modulation, data signal is kind of hidden inside carrier wave. In next video, we will talk about 2 common modulation methods in the radio communication field, AM and FM.
Alright, so next topics, we're going to talk about AM and FM. Common example yan siya ng modulation, just like what I've said a while ago. Alright, so that is our modulation and the analogy between the paper and the rock. And so going back to our slide, ayan, so that is our modulation. I hope that is clear. Alright, so nasabi doon kanina that modulation allows more broadband, tama ba? Mas marami dong signal na nasisend if na-modulate natin yung ating information or yung ating intelligence signal, alright? So we have another term which is called multiplexing. Multiplexing, of course, it's from the word multi. Bakit multi? Marami, di ba? Ibig sabihin ng multi, maraming ano. Sa multiplexing, you can allow or it allows more than one signal to be transmitted concurrently over a single medium, right? So for example, meron kang isang medium lang and through through the technique of multiplexing, pwedeng mas maraming signal yung dumaan sa isang medium mo lang. At anong ibig sabihin nun? The more signal, edi mas marami kang nasisend na information, 'di ba? And mas marami, so mas mabilis, much better, much efficient. Okay? Kasi ito naman talaga yung goal is to transmit signals efficiently. Right? So that is your multiplexing. Basta we'll go over deeper this later, no? Later in the chapter siguro. Basta as of the moment, I just want you to have the picture out of your mind. Meron na kayong sa mga idea kapag kasi narinig niyo itong mga words na to. Na kapag sinabing modulation, okay, alam ko na to. Multiplexing, okay, ganito yun. It allows more than one signal sa isang medium lang, ganun. Okay? So anyways, this is just introduction. So I want you to, of course, introduce these terms to you para when we go deeper into them, you would have you would appreciate them more. Okay? Okay. So next is meron tayong tinatawag na baseband transmission. So baseband is from the word base. Bakit baseband transmission? Because ang tinatransmit malamang dito are those baseband information. Okay? Again, pag nag-transmit ka ng baseband information, you call that baseband transmission. Ma'am, may baseband. So, ibig sabihin, meron ding broadband transmission. Okay? May baseband transmission, may broadband transmission. Let's go back to baseband. So, sa baseband transmission, transmit of course, yung ating baseband information. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng baseband? Okay? Yung baseband information natin, ang ibig sabihin lang nito, these are information na or signal na unmodulated, hindi minodulate. Ano nga ulit yung modulation? May binago ka. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, say for example, from our chapter 1, remember this, itong letter B, diba? This is our voice. So, for example, sa microphone. Alright? So, nagsalita ka. Say for example, ito yung voice. Ito yung graph ng voice mo. Okay, analog siya, 'di ba? Sa microphone, usually, anong ginagawa ng microphone is that yung voice mo, right? Yung audio mo, yung voice mo, kina-convert niya into electrical signals. Tama ba? Kina-convert niya into electrical signals, of course, para mag-flow siya doon sa wires. Sa wire ng ating, say for example, yan, ang microphone, papunta, say for example, sa speaker. Okay? So, i-convert mo na siya electronically para ma-process yung voice mo. Hindi naman talaga yung actual na voice mo andun sa wire, di ba? Pina-process siya, binabago siya, hindi, not binabago, but kina-convert siya into electrical signals. Tama ba yung voice mo? Pero, yung equivalent electrical signals niya, which is originally analog, analog pa rin. Okay, kung ganito yung itsura ng iyong voice o ng itsura ng graph, say for example, pagdating doon sa wire, ganito pa rin more or less yung itsura niya. Wala kang binago, hindi mo binago yung kanyang frequency, yung kanyang amplitude, wala kang binago. Okay, kinonvert mo lang siya into electrical. Wala kang binago, and then pinadaan mo lang doon sa wire. So, parang ganun siya, yung ating, asan na ba yun? Yung ating baseband transmission. Okay? Kasi yung signal natin, yung baseband information, yung hindi binago na information, yung actual talaga, yung raw, is you sent it directly over the medium. Okay, pwede pala yun. Yes, kasi nga sabi din dito, yung mga baseband information daw, yung audio, video, yung conversation, yung chats natin, can be sent directly and unmodified. Pwede mo siyang isend diretso, kahit wag mo na siyang baguhin over the medium. Okay, or can be used. Pwede mo siyang diretso or pwede din naman na gamitin mo siya to modulate a carrier. So, yun na yung sinabi kanina dun sa ating video na pinakita ko sa inyo. Pwede siyang gamitin to modulate or siya yung babago sa carrier for transmission over the medium. So, for example, sa telephone natin, that is an example of baseband transmission. Hindi nila binabago yung Say for example, voice. So kung ano yung voice mo, yun na talaga yung nandun sa wire. Ang ginawa niya lang, kinonvert niya lang into electrically. Electrically. Okay? So yung mga ano din, computer networks. The digital signals are applied directly to coaxial or twisted pair cables for transmission. Okay? Say for example, yung ating computer. Nag-connect tayo sa internet and we want to communicate with the other computer. So we know that digital ang computers, diba? Nag-send sila ng signal. It could either be 1010. So yung signal na 10, yun talaga yung actual signal na nanggaling talaga sa computer. Okay? Because digital yung computer, digital yung output niya. Yun talaga yung signal. At saka yung signal lang yun mismo, yun din yung pinapadala niya. Hindi niya na binabago. Okay? Wala na binabago. Yun na yun. Okay? Hindi na binago yung frequency, yung amplitude, wala na. Yun na talaga yun. So, yung ibig sabihin, that is an example of baseband transmission. Kapag ka sinend mo directly yung signal without even modifying it, then that is called baseband. So, ano naman itong broadband? Okay? Sa broadband transmission, mayroon na tinatawag na carrier. Okay? So, I hope you guys remember yung video natin kanina. So, yung carrier natin is a high frequency. Of course, you know high frequency. Alright? Mas denser sila in terms of frequency. That is modulated by audio, video, or data. Ma'am, bakit ito yung nagmamodulate? Di ba sabi kanina yung baseband information, they modulate a carrier. Di ba? Dapat baseband. But pagdating dito, yung nagmamodulate sa carrier, bakit audio, video, or data? Bakit ganun? Kasi, these are example of, these are example of baseband information. Okay, ito yung mga baseband. So, yung mga baseband, sila yung nagmamodulate ng ating carrier. Yung ating carrier, these are high frequency signals. Saan naman ito galing? Galing lang yan siya sa oscillators. Okay? They are produced locally by oscillator. Pag sinabi natin locally, dun lang sa, makikita mo lang yan sa circuit ng iyong transmitter or yung iyong transceiver. Alright? So a radio frequency wave, we have another term here. It is an electromagnetic signal that is able to travel long distances through space. Okay? So mga radio frequency signals lang ito that can travel long distances through space, of course. Ibig sabihin, wirelessly. So, continuation, a broadband transmission takes place when a carrier signal is modulated. Okay? Kapag ka minodulate mo na yung carrier signal mo, sino yung nag-modulate? Yung iyong baseband information, just like your voice, yung mga music. Okay? Kapag ka minodulate mo na yun, at yun na yung pinadala mo, tinransmit mo, papunta sa iyong receiver, broadband na yun. Okay? Kapag ka yung actual na signal mo, directly sinend mo, unmodified over your medium, baseband yon. Pag binago mo na, minodulate mo, broadband yon. Okay? And of course, ito na nga yung ating two most common methods of broadband transmission. We have the AM and the FM. So, meron din tayong tinatawag na PM, alright, which means phase modulation. Okay? In which of course, yung phase angle lang iyong wave yung kanyang vinavary. Okay? Anyways, pag-uusapan natin itong tatlong to in details on the next chapters. Okay. So parang ganito siya. Okay. Now, say for example, itong figure natin dito. So we have here, this is your symbol for microphone. This one, of course, is for your amplifier. This is for your oscillator. Tama ba? This is our sine wave generator, amplifier ulit, and this is your antenna. So parang ganito lang siya. Okay? So for example, yung nagsalita ka sa microphone, of course, nandiyan yung voice mo, or tawag dyan sa voice mo, or yung music, or yung phone mo, dinikit mo dun sa microphone, tapos nagpa-play ka ng music, ganun. Okay. Intelligence yun, kasi yun talaga yung ating pinaka-raw information. So, yung voice mo, i-convert electrically. Diba? Of course, kailangan nyo i-convert electrically para ma-process ng ating electronic devices dito. So, i-convert siya electrically and then, of course, it would travel through wire. And then, merong amplifier. Bakit may amplifier? Wala to. Amplifier signal para mas maganda siya. Mas gumanda siya. Okay. Bakit baseband signal pa to? Bakit nga? Kasi itong signal na nandito, wala ka pang binago, wala ka pang minodulate. Tama po ba? Ito pa rin yung yung voice, pero ano na-amplify lang. Pero wala kang binago. Na-amplify lang. Okay? Pagdating dito, meron tayong modulator. So, malamang minodulate na yung ating voice. Pagka minodulate mo, kailangan, di ba, kapag ka may modulator, may minodulate ka ng signal. So, etong high frequency na signal dito na nagpo-produce ng ating oscillator, i-modulate ngayon yan gamit itong ating baseband signal. Okay, kaya ang output na ngayon ng ating modulator, of course, is modulated carrier. Then you have here your amplifier, power amplifier, to amplify it before siya ita-transmit through your antenna wirelessly. So, ang nangyari dito, nag-transmit ka ng iyong signal na modulated na. So, anong tawag mo sa transmission na ito? Anong tawag mo sa transmission na ito? Broadband. Okay? Kasi yung tinapon mo na signal is modulated na. Alright? Alright, so just to give you an overview of our AM and FM. So your letter A, this is your AM modulation. Ganito yung nangyayari. Sa letter B, ganito yung nangyayari sa FM or frequency modulation. So tingnan natin kung ano nangyayari. So ito yung ating signal, yung ating intelligent signal, yung raw signal natin, yung say for example, yung voice or yung music, ito yon. Okay? Say for example, sinusoidal yung ating signal. So, ganito yung itsura niya. On letter B still, you have a sinusoidal signal. Dito sa A, this is amplitude modulation. Anong nangyayari? Wait lang. Before that, meron muna tayong, ano nga tong tawag natin dito sa signal na ito? High frequency. Ano nga yung high frequency signal? That is called carrier. Ito yung output ng ating oscillator dito. Okay? So, na-notice nyo, sa A, ano nangyari sa yung carrier, high frequency signal? Nagbabago yung kaniyang amplitude. 'Di ba? Kita nyo dito, pataas, pataas, pababa ulit, pataas. Tama po ba? Nagbabago yung amplitude. Pero yung frequency, still the same. Dito, yung amplitude, nagbabago ba? Hindi. Leveling yung amplitude. Yung frequency, ano notice nyo? Nagbabago ba? Hindi. Yes. Sorry. So, normal frequency, ito, mas higher frequency to. Nakikita nyo ba? Balik sa normal, higher. Nagbabago yung frequency. Dito sa kabila, nagbabago yung amplitude. Anong pattern ng pagbabago ng amplitude dito? Na-notice nyo? Parang may sinusundan siya. Sinusundan niya ito. Okay. Where in fact, ito, tong signal na to na sinusundan niya, that is your original signal. So, ibig sabihin itong ating frequency, yung carrier natin dito, binabago siya, yung amplitude niya binabago by your sinusoid dito. Okay? So, by the way, ang tawag mo dito is envelope. So, binabago siya using this information. Ito, binabago yung frequency according naman dito sa ating information na dito. Okay? So, if you notice, dito, mas mataas yung amplitude niya dito na side. Tama po ba? And if nireflect mo siya sa baba, mas higher na ang frequency ng ating carrier dito din straight niya. Tama ba? Eto, zero yung ating amplitude on these times. So, if you notice din sa baba, ayan, kung titingnan mo yung graph, mas lower yung frequency at these times. Kung saan, zero yung ating amplitude ng ating signal sa taas. Okay? So, again, sa modulation, sa AM modulation, binabago yung amplitude ng ating signal, ng ating carrier, depende sa ating intelligence. Sa FM, binabago yung frequency, depende din sa ating intelligence. Okay? I hope that is clear. So, more on the broadband transmission. So, meron din tayong tinatawag na frequency shift keying or FSK. So, this takes place when data is converted to frequency varying tones. So, kanina, binabago mo yung amplitude, that's AM. This one, frequency shift keying, you are converting your data into frequency varying tones. Right? So devices called modems. Meron tayong tinatawag na modem. Ano ba itong modem? It stands for modulator and demodulator. So ibig sabihin, ng mga modem, it can both modulate and demodulate. So ibig sabihin, kapag ka meron kang base signal, pwede niya i-modulate yun. Pwede siya mag-modulate ng signal. Okay? But then at the same time, kapag may na-receive siya na modulated na signal, kaya niya din itong ibalik sa original. Okay? That is your modem. It can modulate and demodulate. So ano ba yung demodulation? Demodulation, ang tawag sa kanya, detection. Tandaan lang ha, demodulation, the other term is detection, takes place in the receiver when the original is extracted. Ayun. So kapag may na-receive siya na modulated na signal at saka binalik niya sa dati, in-extract niya yung original signal from the modulated one, that is called demodulation or detection. Alright, next is on multiplexing. So sa multiplexing, sabi kanina, I hope you could still remember. Sabi kanina sa multiplexing, it is the process of, or you allow one, two, or more signals to share same medium. Sabay silang gagamit sa isang medium. Okay? Sabay. So, sa multiplexing technique, merong tatlong types. Okay? Pwede siyang frequency division, time division, and code division multiplexing. So this will be discussed on the next chapters. Okay? Just as of now, alam niyo lang na multiplexing, sharing of the medium for two or more signals. At saka meron siyang three basic types: frequency, division, time, and code division. So parang ganito lang yung idea ng ating multiplexing. Okay? So I hope this one is familiar, 'di ba? Kanina ito yung ating figure. Meron tayong modulator. Of course, pag may modulator, meron kang carrier. This is just an oscillator. Okay, this is the high frequency. It produces rather high frequency signals. So power amplifier before antenna para i-transmit na siya. Okay? So sa multiplexing, sabi doon, one or more signals pwede at one medium at a time. So eto na yon. Sa multiplexing, meron ka lang multiplexer device which allows multiplexing. Okay? Ibig sabihin, ito na yung ating say for example, meron ka ditong signal 1 or voice signal 1, voice signal 2, 3, and 4. So, apat na intelligence signal. May apat ka. Okay. So, because of multiplexing, ang output niya, meron ka ng composite or multiplexed signal. Okay. Meron ka ng multiplex signal, then yung multiplex signal mo, yun na yung i-feed sa ating modulator, yun na yung babaguhin. Siya na yung babago sa ating frequency and then power amplifier, then to your antenna para itapo na. So that is our idea sa ating multiplexing. Alright, so our next topic is about the electromagnetic spectrum. But before I'd like to talk about this, I'd like to show you first video from YouTube, which is down below, and I'll get back to you.